Hello, everybody. Vasu Valley Party. Charlie O here. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, September 10th, 2021. Also included in the Friday show, as usual now for football season, the Friday football segment. We'll get to that about 15 minutes after the hour. We'll have our intern, Nick Robinson, in with his unique angles on wagering, player props, and everything that goes into the future wave, the wave of the future in terms of sports wagering and sports angles. We're here every Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 3 Eastern, 12 Eastern, and 1 Eastern right now. Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live for the comments the last few days. We really appreciate it. Download, subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you get your podcast. Don't forget every day that we have day games. We have 2 segments. We have the version of the show that we do live, and then we have the show where we do the podcast minute on social media, where you can reach us on Facebook and Instagram, V Party Sports. MTMAR Podcast at gmail.com, Facebook and Instagram. We have a Make the Money and Run Facebook group page as well, too. You can comment there, send us any questions. The NFL is open last night. We got a controversy in Major League Baseball. Got a lot of things going on. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest-running British pub and restaurant since 1981, celebrating 40 years in Cupertino. Reach out to them at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. No better place to go watch the NCAA NFL games this weekend, as well as during the week. I'm ordering my bangers and that. No better place to go watch the football and reach out to them during the week as well for all their specials. And also they cater to you, and they can host your group events as well, too. All right, Charlie O. What a week it was. What a week we're going to have. What a remembrance we're going to have. Let's start off on a serious note here a little bit. Tomorrow's the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I can remember exactly where I was. I was 33 years old. 20 years ago, it didn't happen until 9:43 Eastern time, so it wasn't on Today or Good Morning America or whatever the CBS show was at that time, so I didn't know about it until after 7 o'clock in the morning our time, and by that time, chaos had already erupted. Do you want to give me a minute on where you were and what you remember specifically? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I was home getting ready to go to work. I was selling advertising at the time for a newspaper in Concord, California, and I was getting ready to go to work. And actually, I was watching the Today Show, which of course out in California is not live, but they broke in with it, and they were talking about. They thought at that time the air traffic control system had gone awry. And I was watching when the second aircraft went into the second tower. And that's when they decided that something was really awry going on. And of course, we were just transfixed. I went in on to work, and then they sent us home because they rightly figured out that nobody was going to be interested in buying auto advertising that day. And we just trying to get our heads around what had happened. Just 2 years earlier, I had been in New York, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. But I had gone to the World Trade Center, and my wife and I had gone to the top and stood on the roof. And if you had never been there, it was tall enough that you could see the curvature of the earth from the roof. And we stood up there on a Saturday night and watched the lights come up on Broadway, which was just an awesome experience. And as I watched those towers go down, I had a personal connection to that because I couldn't believe it. And of course, then the loss of life and the firefighters. My brother was a firefighter. It was devastating. And to this day, I still can't believe that it happened.
Yeah, very tragic of what happened. Obviously, the 2 towers going down. The first plane, at first you thought maybe it was an accident, air traffic control, as you said, and then the loss of life. I only remember bits and pieces of it. I went to work. I was in the corporate world at that time, and we had to. And I was in human resources, so I had to go deal with everybody on top of dealing with my own stuff, and then all the aftermath of that, and all the attacks against the immigrants and immigrants' families, even people who were born here, myself included, over the next few months. Just very sad how the whole thing happened. Eventually, we all got back together, sports-related wise. President Bush throwing out the first pitch at the World Series. I remember that. I remember sports taking the weekend off. I remember football taking the weekend off. Everything related to sports had gone on the back burner, rightfully so. But from that standpoint, we just don't want to forget this is the 20. I cannot believe it's 20 years right now, how fast time has gone, where you and I were at that time, considering the time where we are now in our lives and how life stages are different from that standpoint. But we want to honor everybody that had lost life, that had been affected by it. Everybody had been affected by it at some point or another for 9/11. The Mets and Yankees are playing this weekend. That's going to be a big series for the baseball ramifications, obviously, but also the significance of it. And I think MLB Network did a great job. I didn't see it, but I saw some of the previews on MLB Network replaying the game. They played the first game after 9/11 with the Yankees and the Mets and the Braves, and then also the stories that they had about the game pre-game show that they had last night. I'm sure MLB Network will replay it all, but we didn't want to forget. Obviously, there are more important things in the world going on, and right now we're going through it as well too with COVID, which will lead us to our next story. Surprisingly, as if we haven't had enough to talk about. We'll get to the baseball in a second. We'll get to the baseball in a second. We'll get to all the lines, and we will have the Friday football show at 10:15, 1:15 on the East Coast, and we will have intern Nick Robinson and his unique angle at it. But we're going to get to the baseball in a second. In a baseball-related note, Hunter Renfroe, the outfielder for the Boston Red Sox, not the Vegas wide receiver, tells WEEI, the flagship of the Red Sox, that MLB had told the team to treat the symptoms of COVID because they had 11 players and staff on the COVID list and were unable to play, that Major League Baseball had told them to just treat the symptoms and not test for COVID anymore because they didn't want any more outbreaks or any more pre-setting, pre-whatever to take care of the COVID situation, Charlie. That's a huge investigation. I mean, if Hunter Renfroe is correct, then I don't know why he wouldn't be or why he would make something up like that. The Red Sox have denied his statement. He plays for the Red Sox. He's having a great year for them. But to come out and say something like this, to me, says that something's going on in Major League Baseball. There has to be an investigation. The players' contract with the owners, the Players Association contract with the owners, is in the fall. But for Hunter Renfroe to make a claim like that and then have the WEI host come back at them and ask follow-up questions tells me that there's something that's there. And I just don't know what to make of it from that standpoint. We've already been through a ton of COVID issues from 18 months ago all the way back to the end of 2019 to now, Charlie. And to have him say that Major League Baseball is not testing because they're worried about more COVID cases coming up and just to treat the players with symptoms seems to me very irresponsible. We know baseball has had their issues with decision-making over certain issues. They did pretty well from on the field standpoint, but off the field, they missed the boat. If this one comes in that affects society, let alone baseball, let alone society, then we've got issues going on here, Charlie.
Well, Vasu, since this is a day of history, we might as well go ahead and have history lessons. And we learned this all the way back with the Watergate affair, all the way back in the 70s with Richard Nixon as president. And that is, you follow the money. And that's always where these things start. You follow the money. And if this is true, and I have no reason to doubt Hunter Renfroe, I don't think he has anything to gain by bringing this out. And if any portion of this is true, I think it is you follow the money, because the danger is at this point with the way the COVID breakthrough cases are, the problems with unvaccinated people at this point who are coming down and that's not a political statement at this point, just the pure fact that folks who are not vaccinated are coming down with COVID at this point and exposures and everything else. Major League Baseball is in danger of having games canceled. And at this point in the season, with pennant races coming on, with the playoffs right around the corner, with the World Series right around the corner, we are talking about major dollar losses. And do I believe it's a possibility? Yes, I do believe it's a possibility. Do I believe it's a possibility with Major League Baseball? Absolutely, because nobody shoots themselves in the foot more than Major League Baseball. Do I think it has to be investigated? Absolutely. It's coming from a guy who has not had a history of being a wild hair. So I think it's something that has to be looked at and looked at seriously. And if it's true, there better be not suspensions. There had better be some serious firings, and starting right at the top with Rob Manfred, because he has had a disastrous tenure, in my opinion, as commissioner of baseball. And if this is happening on his watch, if this isn't enough to finally jettison him out of the Park Avenue offices, there'll never be enough.
Well, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens, because I know he's taken a lot of criticism for his on-field ideas and the things that have gone on, and there's not a lot of people that do like him, and I've had people tell me that they should find a commissioner that actually likes baseball. I'm not sure that that's a fair statement. I'm sure he does like baseball, and I'm sure he's been involved with baseball for a long time, but the commissioner definitely is under fire now with this. And by the way, as you were talking, a news story just came out based on The Athletic that Chris Sale is the 10th Red Sox player to be out with COVID. He's going to miss his next start after becoming the 10th Red Sox player to recently test positive for the virus. So Hunter Renfroe, maybe he knew about Chris Sale last night. Maybe he knew about the things that were going on, but this was just reported. It just popped up on my phone 1 minute ago that Chris Sale will miss his next start due to COVID ramifications. So very interesting how this worked out.
Let me just jump in here for a second. I think everybody's assumption is that folks are coming down with COVID because they aren't vaccinated. That is not true. A lot of this stuff is breakthrough. And my nephew is a law enforcement officer who just came down with a breakthrough case. And one of the things he just told me was he was a very early vaccinated person. And they have told him that one of the things that happened, because he was an early vaccinated person, is that he was probably more susceptible as being a breakthrough case because he was more in need of a booster. So that may be one of the problems. The earlier people have been vaccinated, they think now, and gosh, I'm not Dr. Fauci. Okay. So don't quote me anywhere, but they think that it's potentially that people may be more susceptible to breakthrough cases because they're more in need of a booster at this point. So that could be part of it, because a lot of the athletes were early adopters. So that could be part of the problem.
All right. Well, lots of things to talk about. We'll discuss it further as we go on, but it is Friday. It is our Friday football show. We want to make sure we hit some baseball right now. There's one game going to go on at 2:20 Eastern. That is the San Francisco Giants coming off their 3-game sweep against the Colorado Rockies in Denver. The first time the Rockies have been swept all year at home. Actually, I take that back. The first time the Rockies have lost a series at home, let alone be swept, because they are tremendous at home. But they've just run out of gas. Although last night you wouldn't be able to tell against the Philadelphia Phillies the way they pitched. We'll get to that in a second.
They did have a comeback.
Yeah, the baseball, the Giants and Cubs will go at 2:20 Eastern with Dominic Leone, and a bullpen game that was just announced an hour ago. Kyle Hendricks will go for the Cubs. Atlanta got a comeback win against Washington last night. They will go. They will host Miami with Ian Anderson, and Trevor Rogers, who was the All-Star rep for the Marlins, will go today. Miami gives Atlanta trouble, and I believe that game is in Atlanta, if I read right. Yeah, it's in Atlanta. Trevor Rogers against Ian Anderson. Cincinnati, a big series with St. Louis. They're tied with the Cardinals, I believe, in the division. St. Louis is 71-68, Cincinnati 74-67. So one game behind Cincinnati. And in terms of wildcard ramifications, Cincinnati 2 back of San Diego for the second wildcard spot. St. Louis 3 back, Philadelphia 4 back, and the Mets now 6 back after they lost their game. Tyler Mahle, John Lester in St. Louis tonight. John Lester has pitched pretty well the last few starts. And then the last National League game, the Dodgers 152 versus those San Diego Padres. Julio Urias goes for his 15th win tonight. The Dodgers offense struggling a little bit. They have to pick it up against the Padres this weekend. Joe Musgrove has had a good year for San Diego. Charlie, let's hit the National League only right now real quick.
Well, I'm really excited about that Red St. Louis series, because that has such big wild card ramifications. And then obviously the Dodgers San Diego series. This could be either the rise of the Phoenix for San Diego or their death knell, one of the two. And the Dodgers do need to come alive with the bat. And this is kind of typical Dodgers with this team. They'll go and they look good, and then all of a sudden they go to sleep at the plate. But they're going to be at home. They like to play at home, and I'm not worried about the Dodgers. I'm really not. The only question is going to be, can they win the division, or are they going in as a wild card? That's the only two questions there. San Diego, they're desperate, folks. They're on the ropes, and they are still in danger of not making the wild card. They need to win this series. Winning this series at Chavez Ravine, that's a tall order for any team, no matter how well they're playing. That would be a tall order for the Giants right now, who are in first place, let alone a team that's on a slide. And I have to tell you, if I had to put money on who will win the series right now, Dodgers. I mean, right now, I mean, I see it at least a 2 out of 3 game series for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers who get serious when they play at home. Do I see a sweep out of the question? No, especially the way, as my partner has explained to us all season long, ever since April, and I bow in his presence because he predicted it right from the get-go. The Padres play such horrible defense, and that's going to work against them all weekend long.
Well, they've got Musgrove and they've got Snell and Darvish probably going this weekend as well. Actually, Darvish will probably go Monday in San Francisco. So they get the Dodgers and the Padres. Obviously, I'll be interested in this one. Julio Urias having a good year. They're going to get Kershaw back. They got Tony Gonsolin back yesterday. He pitched well against the Cardinals. The bats didn't come alive. The Giants and Cubs series, very interesting, obviously, for the ramifications of the NL West. Chicago Cubs are red hot. They can't take the Cubs lightly. They're 8 out of the last 10. And they beat the Reds 2 out of 3. Dominic Leone pitching for the Giants today. And that's going to put some pressure on the Dodgers because the Giants keep putting W's up. And now they're going to see already what the Giants did today. So that may intensify the pressure tonight if they already see a W in the Giants' ledger tonight. And, of course, the National League Central is out with Milwaukee. But the wild card with Cincinnati and St. Louis will be very interesting to see. And then Atlanta still leading that division, believe it or not, with all the problems that the Mets are having. By the way, 3 games not on the board yet as far as pitching staff, so we'll get those out by 6 Eastern as well. All right, Charlie, let's hit the American League real quick. Toronto, red hot. I mean, just swept the Yankees, just demolished the Yankees. And now they're going into Baltimore, who's really struggling with their best pitcher, Robbie Ray, 285 against Chris Ellis. Tampa Bay, who has won. Tampa Bay, who is they lost their last game. They had a day off, but they just beat the Red Sox 2 out of 3 in Boston. They're 88-52. They're only a couple of games back of the Giants for best record. They've got Michael Wacha going into a decent Detroit team, but this should be a Tampa Bay series. 9 the total for Michael Wacha, who's been one of the weak spots for Tampa Bay from the starting rotation standpoint. And then Minnesota, Kansas City. The big one, Chicago, Boston, the White Sox 151 with Carlos Rodon and Tanner Houck. I would check that rotation because Carlos Rodon was hurt. He may not make that start, but as of right now, 151 for the White Sox versus the Red Sox. The Red Sox, not on life, but they lead the wild card. But as far as the American League East goes, that's a Tampa Bay division. Tanner Houck, one of the starters that has come in, one of the openers, I guess, for Boston right now. And they had a tough series with Tampa Bay. And the White Sox, they had their series with the Kansas City Royals. Oh, no, they had their series with the Oakland A's. They played Kansas City, and then they had the series with the Oakland A's where they lost 2 out of 3, Oakland trying to stay alive. They have Texas again tonight with Paul Blackburn and Glenn Otto going for the Rangers. All right, Charlie, my takes on the American League. Toronto, red hot, coming off the sweep of the Yankees. I'm going to feel sorry for Baltimore because Baltimore is a bandbox, and they already hit the snot out of the ball in Yankee Stadium against the Yankees pitching. Tampa Bay is going to win the East. They're maintaining with Detroit, Matthew Boyd, their best pitcher, but they can't lose sight of the fact that they're trying to keep momentum going in terms of their number 1 seed. Here's one: the Houston Astros. They lost to Seattle the other day. They didn't play. They took 2 out of 3 from Seattle. Had to have a walk-off on Tuesday night. Lost, blew a 4-2 lead on Wednesday. Now they get the Angels in town, and Framber Valdez is going tonight for the Houston Astros, and Shohei Ohtani going for the Angels. They're a 190 favorite. The Houston Astros are I know the Angels are not a very good team, but Shohei Ohtani is 9-1 with a 2.77 ERA or somewhere in that neighborhood, and he's a plus 180 or plus 175 underdog for the Angels against the Astros, even though they're on the road, and that's surprising to me, Charlie.
I was amazed at that number. As a matter of fact, I'm already working underdog in my head on that number because I'm going, really? I mean, I know the Astros can hit and everything. This is Ohtani. Okay. Every time you go against Ohtani, he seems to make you pay. He makes you pay on the mound. He makes you pay at the plate. So I'm not sure that's good money. I'm looking at that one very closely. I looked at that Toronto Baltimore. I mean, is that like a gift to the Blue Jays? I mean, hey, Merry Christmas early here, guys. Yeah. We're sending you to Baltimore for 3 games. By the way, just a little aside. One of the games in this last series for Baltimore, 4,100 fans in the stand. Yeah. If I'd have ever told you you're only going to have 4,100 fans in the stands in Baltimore, you'd have looked at me and told me I'm crazy.
I think they only had 4,000 in Oakland against the White Sox on Tuesday night too.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising. I mean, the A's could be in first place by 10 games and be destined to win the World Series, and they'd only have 4,000 show up. But Baltimore, I mean, that's a baseball town, and that that organization is so sad. I mean, that's just tragic. But for Toronto, wow, great for them. And Tampa Bay, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're going to win that. They're going to win that East. But no easy weekend for them with Detroit. I mean, Detroit's got a lot of hope there right now. I mean, that's a franchise that's on the rise. They're reviving themselves. They're a Lazarus franchise coming back from. So that won't be an easy weekend for them. They'll probably win the series, but there's no sweep in the future of that series.
Let's wrap up with the interleague games tonight. The Milwaukee Brewers, we talked about their big lead. Cleveland has kind of slipped a little bit. They are going to Cleveland. Adrian Hauser, very not well-known pitcher for that Brewer staff because everybody talks about the big 3 for Milwaukee. Adrian Hauser, Eli Morgan going for Cleveland tonight. Milwaukee is slight favorite. By the way, back to the Angel game for a second. I could understand Houston being at home, being about a 130 or 140 favorite, maybe 150 because of the way the Astros are at home. But now, because then the Angels are not very good. Let's face it, they're not very good. But now you've got a situation where it's 190. So check back by 6 Eastern on our social media pages. We'll have all our picks by then, as well as all weekend for NFL and college picks as we get to it as well for this weekend. Lots to talk about in the NFL and our football segment. And then the big one in New York, the Yankees and Mets. Yankees are favored 120 at the Mets. 7.5 the total. No DH in the game. Jordan Montgomery, Tyler McGill go for the Mets. The Mets struggled against Miami. They had leads in both games, and all 3 of those games. They won the first one. They could not hold the second one. They lost in extra innings there. And then they had a 2-0 lead last night and ended up giving up 3 runs and losing to the Miami Marlins again. 3-2, and they are struggling right now. Let's go through the wild cards real quick before we take a break and get to the Friday football show. The wild cards in the American League, Boston and New York, both at 62 losses. They're tied, even though Boston has 2 more wins. They're 1 game up based on that. Toronto only has 62 losses. They only have 77 wins, so they're a half a game back behind the Yankees. But they're all at 62 losses, and that's a 3-way race right there. The Oakland A's, Seattle Mariners are at 64 losses, 2 games back of the second spot. And then the Cleveland Indians, we said they're struggling a little bit. They had a good game yesterday, but they're 7 back, and that's too many teams to get over. In the National League, Dodgers have a 13-game lead over San Diego, 12 in the loss column. 13-game lead over San Diego between 1 and 2. San Diego has a 2-game lead on Cincinnati, 3 on St. Louis, 4 on Philadelphia, and then those Mets are 6 back. They didn't help themselves with the Marlins, as we just said. Quick wild card thoughts, Charlie, before we get to the football show.
Well, in the American League, I'll tell you, my money's on the Blue Jays to make it in. I don't think I think the Yankees are a hot mess. I think they'll probably have a pretty good weekend against the Mets, but I don't like their consistency, and I like where the Blue Jays are going. I know the Blue Jays pitching's a little bit weak, but I think they can make up with that with their bats. I I would love to tell you the Reds are going to overcome the Padres. I have no faith in them, and they're my team, but I have no faith in them at this point. I'm waiting for the fade, and St. Louis has been so inconsistent that I'm ready for them to have another drop off. So this weekend, I think whoever comes out with the series win this weekend will stay in contention. The other one could well be on their slide out of contention in the wild card.
Yeah, big series in St. Louis between the Reds and Cardinals. All right, lots to talk about in baseball. Don't forget to check our social media out. We'll have all the baseball updates in the afternoon, as well as all the starting pitchers for the betting lines as well, too. And we'll have our picks for the baseball games as well. And then our football games, don't forget Saturday and Sunday. We have 11 o'clock starting times tomorrow for football. So we're going to have our picks out by 10:30, between 10 o'clock and 10:30 Eastern times on Saturday. And then we'll be out with our picks on Sunday by noon Eastern. We may even have a show at noon Eastern on Sunday for the NFL for opening weekend. It might be a good weekend to have a show. We haven't decided yet. But we're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks to Neil. Thanks to David Andrews as well for coming on with us. And then check us out on our social media no later than 6 p.m. Eastern for the night games as well. All our social media pages, including our Facebook group page. Thanks to the Britannia Arms, Silicon Valley's longest-running British restaurant and pub, celebrating 40 years. Check them out online, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, the Friday football show. The NFL opened its season last night with a pretty good game. If you had the Buccaneers, you didn't like it. If you had the over, you loved it. If you had the Cowboys, you loved it. But Thursday night football opened up the season. We'll talk about that for a few minutes. We'll preview the entire NFL. And we got college football coming up, including our intern, Nick Robinson, at 45 minutes into the show. He'll join us as well, too, to talk a lot of college football for this weekend as we get into week 2 of the NCAA. NFL, NCAA previews and reviews as we get to the Friday football show for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. We'll see you in 30 with the show. All right, welcome back. Make the Money and Run. This is the Friday football show for Friday, September 10th, 2021. Week 1 of the NFL has started. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers get a game-winning field goal from Ryan Suckup to beat the Dallas Cowboys 31-29. The Cowboys covered the 8.5, 9, 9.5, wherever you ended up having it. They covered all those point spreads. The over-under ended up getting to 52.5. I think I saw 53 late in the game. That game went over as well, too. What a game last night. It was Tom Brady showing his comeback ability. I think they put a stat up where he was 4th all-time in comeback victories or game-winning drives. And the fact that he had one last night that led to a game-winning field goal just enhances the legend of the GOAT, TB12 right now, 31-29. We'll preview all the NFL games as well. We've got the NCAA games this weekend, some big games this weekend, and we'll go conference by conference. In terms of that, we'll talk about the Big 12 and the addition of 4 teams. And a lot of college football going with that. Don't forget to join me at 5 o'clock Eastern as well on a conversation with Darren Smith of Kansas City Radio, ESPN Kansas City, and Sports Radio 810. He covers the Chiefs. We'll talk AFC West football. We'll talk AFC football. We'll see if the Chiefs can make it to a 3rd straight Super Bowl this year. Sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. No better place to catch up on your NCAA NFL football weekends on Saturdays and Sundays. Check out their weekly specials as well, too. And they can cater for you. They can come to your company or they can set up for your group or event at the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Just give them a call at 408-252-7262. All right, Charlie, thoughts on the NFL as we put the lines up here from last night, the game, your impression. I know you listened to it, probably had it on a monitor somewhere as your station had it in Sacramento.
Yeah. I mean, what a great game. I mean, if you were a viewer, how about some action? I was a little surprised, frankly, at the game calling of the Cowboys. because did they forget they had Zeke Elliott? I I mean, where was the run game last night? Now I know that the defense of the Bucs shut him down pretty early in the contest, but did you have no adjustments made at all to create a running game last night? I was just kind of in shock that they didn't find a way to establish any kind of a run last night to create an alternative. Now, on the other hand, I'm not too worried about Dak Prescott anymore in his arm. Wow. Oh, that was impressive. So that from that standpoint, that was fantastic. I mean, if you're a Dallas fan, make sure you go to church this weekend and put something in the plate because your prayers have been answered. From that, and I'm happy. I'm happy. The times he had to scramble, he looked good. He was able to make adjustments when the pocket was collapsing. So that part of it was really good. Brady was Brady. I mean, when it came down, what was that, about a minute 14, I think it was, or a minute 49, when they got the ball back and needed to get in position for the field goal. Wow. I mean, it was just like, okay, Mr. Cool, here I come. And then when they got the field goal, it was so classic. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it on SportsCenter. What else? They get the field goal, no dramatics, just just going, man, what a veteran move. What a veteran move. So it was a great game. And I know there was the controversial play on the last reception. Was it offensive? Should have been offensive pass interference. It could go either way, at that point. But you got to understand, and the first thing I heard everybody say was, well, that was a Brady call. No, it was not a Brady call. That was an NFL call.
Right.
Because if you don't think that the NFL has a lean towards offense, then you haven't been watching the NFL for the last 10 years. And so there's always a lean towards offense in NFL officiating. And I think that's all it was last night. So I didn't have real heartburn about what happened.
Prescott, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception. Elliott, 11 carries, 33 yards. Dallas rushed for 60 yards as a team, 403 passing yards. Brady had 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They turned the ball over 4 times. I think that hurt Tampa Bay from the standpoint of covering. I'm still worried about Dallas's defense after watching the game. Tampa Bay's defense against the run, they've been top 5 the last couple of years. Their adjustment was they were going to let Prescott go because they clearly could not run the ball on the inside against that great front 7 that Tampa Bay had last night. And it showed. And the Buccaneers, Fournette only had 32 yards. Ronald Jones had the key fumble. He had 4 carries, 14 yards. We didn't see much of him in the second half after the fumble. Antonio Brown, 5 catches, 121 yards, a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 105 yards, a touchdown. Fantasy football stats, Rob Gronkowski had 2 touchdowns last night as well, too, for Dallas for fantasy football purposes. Of course, Prescott had 403 yards. Amari Cooper, 13 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches, 104 yards after dropping a couple early. He did have 1 touchdown for them. That accounted for their 31 points. Greg Zuerlein, if he's your kicker, boy, you missed points last night, and they had a chance to win that game.
And Vasu, all that could go through my head was John Madden yelling, you have to win 2 out of 3 elements in the game, and you're losing the special teams. And that's exactly what it was. He had 4 points that he cost him, a missed field goal and a missed extra point. And look at the final score of the game. And if I'm the Cowboys this morning, I am out auditioning every available kicker in the national that's a professional kicker. I'm serious. I mean, you cannot afford to lose 4 points in any game in the National Football League. I mean, it was atrocious.
Yeah, Greg Zuerlein's had a good career with the Rams. Cowboys, he had a pretty good year. He made the kick yesterday that gave them the lead, but he did miss the extra point. I'm not going to get on him for the 60-yard field goal. It's very rare to make a 60-yard field goal.
I know, but still, I mean, this is today's NFL, and guys make those.
Not 60 yards. I'm going to give Greg Zuerlein the benefit of the doubt on that. The other 2 field goals and the extra point, absolutely. You cannot leave those points. You said 4 points, and that's the 31-yard field goal that he missed and the extra point. So that's the 4 points you're talking about, not a 60-yard field goal. All right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Tampa Bay 1-0 on defense of their Super Bowl championship. They get the 31-29 victory. Cowboys cover the 9 points. They go over the game as well. All right, Friday football show continues. Class Nevada party. Charlie O here, the Make the Money and Run podcast. Coming up, Nick Robinson in about 10 minutes. We'll get to all the college football, but let's hit the NFL right now. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, 6.5, 48 for Buffalo. Carolina and Sam Darnold going up against the New York Jets. Geez, you just got traded. Now you're already facing your old
delicious? King. That is just delicious.
4-44 for Carolina at home. Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, the number 1 pick. We'll go to Houston at -3, 45.5. Tennessee and Arizona, very interesting game. Ryan Tannehill did have COVID during the summer. He's back. Derrick Henry's back. Their defense was not very good last year. They added Julio Jones. They averaged 30 points a year last year without Julio Jones, but that defense gave up a lot too. And Arizona does have the offensive weapons. I'm still not sold on Arizona defensively. And everybody, there was talk yesterday at the NFC West that the possibility of all 4 teams could make the playoffs. I just don't see how they could do that mathematically or even looking at it with the eye test. There's just no way, because that division's going to beat up on each other, and I just don't think there's a way that that's going to happen for all 4 teams. The other 3, there's 3 wild cards now, as we know. But Tennessee, Arizona, 3 and 53.5 in Tennessee. Washington, a 1-point favorite over the Chargers, 44.5. I really like Justin Herbert. And if Brandon Staley's there and they've improved that defense, they're going to have to figure out a way to stop that running game for Washington. More importantly, they're going to have to figure out a way to block that front 4 for the Washington football team to make sure Justin Herbert stays upright in that game. Because if he stays upright, they're going to win the game. Atlanta, a favorite, shockingly. I guess it's not shocking. They're at home, 3 and 48.5 over the Eagles. We know how bad the Eagles are, but I got a feeling the Eagles are going to play better this year. 48.5. I'm not sold on Atlanta. I don't know what kind of season Matt Ryan's going to have. Seattle is at Indianapolis. They're a 3-point favorite. Questionable marks on Seattle's defense, 49 for Indianapolis. Minnesota, 3 and 47. 49ers, Lions, 9, 45.5. Kansas City in a big game against Cleveland, 5.5, 54.5. Patriots, 3, 43.5. Denver, 3 and 41.5. And then the later games, Green Bay is going to play that game in Jacksonville against the Saints, 49.5. The Rams are 7.5 over my Bears, 46.5 on Sunday Night Football with Andy Dalton starting. And then Monday night, Baltimore goes into Las Vegas as a 4-point favorite with all the problems the Ravens have had this last week with their running backs and their injuries. They lost Marcus Peters as well, too. Their cornerback / safety on defense, 50 the total for the Raiders. Charlie, NFL takes.
Wow. I mean, it's so good to be back and have this. By the way, anybody who gets involved in wagering on that Eagles Falcons game, call me. You're in trouble. we need to
What
talk.
are you talking about? I like the Eagles.
Oh, no. Stay away from that game. Come on. The Eagles kill everybody every time.
Well,
come on.
I'll make this guarantee. By 11 o'clock East, by noon Eastern on Sunday, Charlie O and I will have our NFL Sunday picks. So make sure you tune in to social media, and we'll have that as well. So you can see if I actually do have Philadelphia or not on Sunday morning.
By the way, Steelers Bills, TJ Watt, big 5-year contract extension today. I don't know, $192 billion.
$130 million, 80
guaranteed. NFL contracts just make my head hurt. But he did get like $38 million in a signing bonus.
80. 80 is guaranteed. Oh, that's right. The signing bonus is different.
Signing
bonus.
Okay. So that's up front. So that's good there. I like that coming up.
How about that Kansas City Cleveland game in the afternoon, the rematch of the AFC Championship? A lot of people like Cleveland, 5.5. Patrick Mahomes has got to be upright after the Super Bowl. They revamped their offensive line a little bit.
Let me give you a stat that I saw today. Patrick Mahomes in September, 14-0, 32 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, how is that for being productive in the month of September?
Yeah, you come out of the gate and start off hot, and that takes care of the AFC West right away.
So I got to tell you, If you don't think my money's on Kansas City, right there, baby. And of course, I have to love it. I mean, this does not influence my wagering at all, but he's also my fantasy quarterback. But when I saw those numbers, I went, really? I mean, and they have improved that offensive line to protect them now. So that I think that'll be a very interesting game. Obviously, Cleveland is going to be, hey, we want to pay you back. Well, don't get too excited, Browns fans. But I think that'll be a good matchup there. The one game that you talked about that I found very interesting is that Chargers Washington game. I know everybody loves Fitzmagic, and I do too. He's a cool guy. We love the beard. We love the talk. We love the attitude. We know that the Washington football team has a great defense. But man, do you feel like they're the most overrated team in the NFL right now? I mean, I just, Fitz he's always good sometimes, and he's always bad sometimes. And I just don't feel like this is a team that is going to always play well against good teams. And I think the Chargers are going to be improved. I think they're I don't like you. I like Herbert. I think they're going to show better defense. I don't know. I'm thinking about that game, and I got to tell you, I'm thinking Chargers. I haven't finalized it yet.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be an interesting game to watch. And then and then that Jets Panthers game. that's just a must watch game for me. Because I want Sam Darnold. I want that kid to win that game so bad. I really do. Just because he deserves some payback.
Well, McCaffrey coming off injury. Look for him to do some damage against the Jets. Jets defense is improved, but I'm with Robert Saleh, their new coach. But I'm not sure.
And I love Saleh, and I love Mac Jones, and I love all that. It's not an issue there. But Sam Darnold, come on.
All right, for me, Buffalo Pittsburgh's interesting. As I said, Tennessee Arizona will be interesting. I love Justin Herbert. I think the Chargers are going to be pretty good. They're going to Washington, I believe. Right? Yeah, they're a favorite. You mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick. Taylor Heineke almost beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home in that wild card game, and then we would not have had a 7th championship. They were right there, and that defensive front got to Brady, and they were able to stay with it. I remember from the standpoint of they were a 10-point favorite in the game on the road was Tampa Bay, and Washington was right there. They were down only 3 or 6 points after he had come down. And I don't know if Ron Rivera had given him as much of a shot, or they wanted to go with the veteran, or if this is a Chicago Bears situation related to my situation where the veteran's going to go in and see how they do, because they've got a pretty good defense and they've got that front four to go in. So I'm with you on that, but I will be interested to see how they block that front four, because Chase Young and their other I forget the other lineman that rushes. I should have the names in front of me, but that will be an interesting game. Seattle, I want to see how Seattle's defense does against Indianapolis. Carson Wentz looks like he's going to play this weekend. Russell Wilson is my fantasy quarterback, and they've got offensive skill players galore. Minnesota is a favorite at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow going to come back for Cincinnati. He's right there with that. The 49ers.
Like that game.
I don't know. I like Cincinnati's offense. We'll see. You'll watch it.
I want to watch. My big thing there is I want to see Joe Burrow come back.
Of course.
That's my big thing with that game. But the rest of that game.
Couple more minutes here with the NFL before we get to Nick Robinson and the college football. San Francisco, you think that's too many for the 49ers? Jared Goff can get on a roll, and they've got some skilled players on offense. Is their defense good enough to stop Mostert? And that running game, Garoppolo going to be the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers going into Sunday, Charlie?
No, that's not too many points for the 49ers. I mean, come on. Poor Jared Goff. He was sent to hell. I mean, he's, I love Detroit. I used to go to Lions games. I love Lions fans. There's no more loyal fans in the world. Their coach is the equivalent of Jim Tomsula when he took over the 49ers. I think he's a lot of bluster. I don't think this guy knows what he's doing. And Jared Goff is not the answer to saving the Lions. And I love Jared Goff. I think he was the target of being made the problem with the Rams, and he was not the problem with the Rams. So no, he's not the salvation, and no, that's not too many points in that game.
All right, we're trying to get Nick Robinson in here. He might have gone to the other page. Try the other. So let me do some producing here.
Okay,
other invite.
I'll just keep going for a little bit.
No, we're good. I just sent him a text. It's probably
okay.
Gonna come to you too.
By the way, you talked about that Cardinals-Titans game.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. You know, the Cardinals, everybody wants to love the Cardinals. And, you know, I like Tyler. I like Murray. And Kingsbury, you know, he's the image that everybody wants to have of the new NFL coach, and living in the cool house and everything else. But yet all the experts say that he's going to be unemployed at the end of the season. I mean, if you listen to the people who really watch the league, they say that they're going to wind up last.
That's a good division to end up last in, though.
Yeah, but they're not. Everybody says that. Everybody who knows says they're not making the playoffs, that they're going to wind up last, and that Kingsbury's going to be a coordinator someplace next year, or taking the year off and being a talking head on one of the.
Whoops, what happened? Well, Charlie O went out here for some reason. I don't know what happened to him, but he went out for some reason. I guess he'll have to come back in here. The NFL will getting a lot of things done with the NFL here for week one. The 49ers, the Chiefs, and Browns game will be interesting. The Patriots and Dolphins game, the two Alabama quarterbacks, the last two Alabama quarterbacks, Tagovailoa and Mac Jones, going to start. First rookie to ever start for Bill Belichick. And then the later games, Green Bay and the New Orleans Saints, Jameis Winston going to start there. The Rams, 7.5 over the Bears on Sunday Night Football. The Bears defense is pretty good. Matthew Stafford, I really like Matthew Stafford. I thought Matthew Stafford would be just tremendous. And then the Monday night game in Las Vegas, the Baltimore Ravens are 4-50. We'll get Charlie back in as well. I don't know what happened there, Charlie, but all of a sudden you went out. So we're just finishing up on the NFL.
I'm never supposed to talk bad about the Arizona Cardinals.
I guess not. Those people in Arizona got to you. All right. When we come back, we'll try to attempt to get Nick Robinson in. But if not, we're going to get to all the college football, and we will get to our previews for the weekend. Don't forget, on Saturday and Sunday, we will have our picks by 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 on the West Coast Saturday morning, and then on Sunday we will have our picks and our fantasy updates by noon Eastern on Sunday morning before the 1 o'clock kickoffs of opening week of the NFL season. All right, back in 30 seconds with the college football preview for this weekend. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast, Friday football show. Vasu Vatapati, Charlie O, sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. All right, welcome back, Charlie O, Vasu Vatapati, the Friday football show of the Make the Money and Run podcast for September 10th, 2011. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. You can check out our social media pages for updates. We'll have updated picks, updated information for you by 6 Eastern every day on Saturdays and Sundays. Tomorrow, there's going to be 8 o'clock in the morning games on the West Coast, so 11 o'clock on the East Coast. So we'll have our picks in by 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on Saturday. And then, as usual, for Sunday, we will have our noon Eastern picks, and we'll have our updates, and everybody, the injury reports will all be out, and we'll have our finalized picks on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock our time, noon on the East Coast as well. Check out Britannia Arms, celebrating 40 years in Cupertino. Check them out at 7262. All right, let's go on to college football here. We talked about last weekend on yesterday's show, but here we go, conference by conference, power by conference. Duke and Virginia are going tonight. Duke is going tonight. I'm sorry, Virginia. Pittsburgh is playing Tennessee. Virginia Tech is going to, let me see, I have it all here. Virginia Tech, a 20.5-point favorite. Rutgers is playing a -2. They're at an ACC team as well. Hang on here. Let me do this right here. Let me do this right here. Rutgers, Syracuse, Boston College 37 in Massachusetts. Duke is playing tonight against North Carolina A&T. UNC coming off their loss last week is a 26-point favorite. North Carolina State has Mississippi State of the SEC. They're a road favorite. And then Miami, after getting hammered by Alabama last week, they have Appalachian State. Don't take them too lightly. Quick ACC thoughts, Charlie.
You know what? Out of those games, one game that you're going to want to watch is that Rutgers-Syracuse game. That is going to be a very interesting game. Rutgers, not thought of as a Pac-10 powerhouse, but Rutgers is a pretty good team. They are better than Syracuse, and that's not easy. That's not hard to say because I know several high school teams that may be better than Syracuse. And I've listened to a lot of people, read a lot of people, and they think that this game really right now, they think -2 is a gift. So you might want to take a look at that game because that may be a good play right there. I've seen a lot of people who think that should be more like Rutgers, and that easily could be a -6, -7, -8 game.
Moving on to the Big 12 here, Coastal Carolina in the top 25. They've got Kansas tonight, 26.5. The line, 52.5 on Kansas. Kansas barely won last week. They're 1-0, believe it or not. But that Coastal Carolina team is really good, Charlie.
Man, I got to tell you, Coastal Carolina. I mean, did you ever think that we'd be talking about Coastal Carolina being a favorite over a Big 12 team?
Well, Casey brought it up to us last year.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously. I mean, we're talking about a directional school that probably nobody ever thought about until last year being a huge favorite. I mean, 26.5-point favorite over a Big 12 school. I mean, even though it's Kansas, it's crazy. It's crazy to be that way. And Coastal Carolina, somebody's got to suck that team up and get them in a decent conference. I mean, seriously, somebody's got to get them in a conference where they can get seen on TV on a regular basis because they've got it together. They've got the recruiting. They've got the money behind them. They got the fan base. Somebody needs to get them into a conference right away.
Yeah, it's very rare when teams move from conference to conference in college football, but no, unfortunately, that's what's going on right now. Speaking of that conference, let's go to the Big 12. 4 teams have been added. Charlie, you got that story on the 4 teams officially being added. You want to name? I don't know the teams offhand. I forgot the team names. BYU, is it?
BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and the other one, UCF.
Good.
Have been added to the Big 12. So now they can finally add again because they will actually have 12 teams in the Big 12. Very interesting to me that those teams are the ones that they've added. I think Houston's a good add for them for location wise. Houston, I think, has put together programs that are deserving of that. Cincinnati, that's a big upgrade for them. I mean, that's huge for them to get into a conference like that. And that'll be a good rivalry for them with West Virginia being that close by. I mean, for folks that don't really understand the geography, it's only about 3.5 hours over to West Virginia. So that's a big thing for them right there. That'll create a big rivalry time for them. BYU,
Finally, they're getting out of independent status.
Get out of that independent status, get back into a conference. That will be very helpful to them as far as bowl games and national rankings. And UCF, that's a big upgrade there. And that will geographically help that conference because it'll get them some viewers on the East Coast that they haven't had before. So I think it's a good move by the Big 12. I'm not sure, Vasu, that it creates for them the Power 5 status that they want. But
no doubt about it. All right, big game in the Big 12, Iowa State, Iowa, the in-state rivalry. Iowa State and Brock Purdy, senior leading team, 4.5 versus Iowa, who came off a big victory over Indiana Stockey. And I think we all liked Indiana last week, but that's the big game in the Big 12. Again, we'll have our picks on there. Let's go to the Big 10. Virginia is going to be a 10-point favorite against, this is what I was trying to get to earlier. Illinois is playing Virginia. That's one of the 11 o'clock in the morning games. The big game in the Big 10 is Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State 14.5, 63.5, Charlie, in terms of that game. Ohio State defense did not play well against Minnesota. By the way, Ibrahim from Minnesota is out for the rest of the year, so they're not going to be in contention for anything in terms of that division, but it's an Ohio State conference anyway. But here comes Oregon playing a so-so game against Fresno State, and here's Ohio State. Maybe Oregon looked past Fresno State to get to this game. Charlie, Ohio State 14.5, 63.5.
Wow. You know what? I'd be hesitant on those numbers because I think Oregon's a pretty good team. And now I know Ohio State is no slouch, but I wasn't too impressed with the way Ohio State, particularly in that first half, handled Minnesota. So, I know Minnesota's an improved program, blah, 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 blah. They're Ohio State. That's not the way they're supposed to look. So this is kind of a wait and see for me to see how they come out of the box and how they handle a team like Oregon, who is a serious football team.
Utah 7 at BYU in the Holy War this weekend in the Pac-12 as we move on. USC has Stanford tomorrow night, late 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 on the West Coast on Fox. 17.5, 53.5. USC handled San Jose State in the second half last week. Stanford, we said yesterday, looked terrible against Kansas State. Arizona, 34-point favorite again. They have I forgot who they have.
UNLV, I think.
I think they have UNLV. You're right. Arizona State has UNLV 34, 54.5. And then Oregon State late night on Fox Sports 1 has Hawaii, who got dismantled by UCLA. They're going up against another Pac-12 team. Oregon State, 11-point favorite coming off their loss to Purdue. Let's move on to the SEC here real quick. The SEC, the big game in the SEC. There's not really a big game in the SEC. Texas A&M 17 at Colorado. Texas is going to Arkansas. They're playing Arkansas this weekend, and they've got a 7-point favorite. They had a tough game against Lafayette, we thought, coming in. They handled ULL Lafayette very handily. We talked about North Carolina State and Mississippi. North Carolina State can run the ball. Mississippi played very well on Monday night. Louisville may not be very good, and North Carolina State going in as a favorite may be something there. And then Colorado State, a 7-point favorite over Vanderbilt late night on CBS Sports Network as well, too. Charlie, your thoughts on the SEC and the Pac-12?
Well, they started off week 1 giving us good games, and now you know that the SEC is going to have, games where they're going to run over little sisters of the poor, and that's what they're starting to do here in some of these games. And I don't have a problem with that because the smaller schools need the big paydays. So that's what you're going to have there at this point. There's anything really exciting. The only thing that I was interested in is the fact that Texas is a ranked school going into Arkansas and is only getting 7 points. I'm kind of looking at that. I'm kind of looking at that game going, So I'm going to study that game a little more because that intrigues me a little bit.
Lastly, I'll be interested to see what Georgia does because their offense did nothing against Clemson last week, and Clemson. They beat Clemson 10-3, but their only score was the defensive touchdown. They're 23-point favorites over UAB this weekend, so hopefully their offense will get back going as well. The American Mountain West will hit that on our social media pages as well too. Vasivada Party sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out. Thanks for their sponsorship. Vasivada Party, Charlie O, with the Make the Money and Run podcast Friday football segment as well too. Keep up on our social media. We'll have all our picks for you by 10:30 Eastern on Saturday, noon Eastern on Sunday for the NFL as well, too. All right. For Charlie O, I'm Vasivada Party. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Take care.